Hey everyone, my name's Ian. I am a consultant with Fisher Improvement Technologies, and I thought I'd take some of the weight off Rob's shoulders for a bit and do a bit of a walk and talk here from the beautiful jungles of Ubud, Bali, Indonesia, where I've been on lockdown since March. Not gonna lie, it's been a pretty good place to be on lockdown. But I wanted to talk to you today about risk, and a lot of the work we do is designed to either eliminate risk where possible, or eliminate risk and error, and where we can't do that, reduce it to acceptable levels and also mitigate any consequences of risk and error. And I wanted to talk about that in reference to an experience I've had lately involving risk and getting things down to an acceptable level of risk. One of the things that has become apparent the more we've understood the impact of different personalities and how different personalities see and manage risk differently is how my personality impacts what an acceptable level of risk is to me. My e-colors are blue over red. And what that means is that I'm a very people-oriented person, and I've noticed that when other people are involved, I don't have a very high tolerance for risk. I don't like putting other people in any sort of danger. When it comes to myself, my level of risk, my acceptable level of risk is much higher if it only impacts me. And recently, I quite like getting tattoos, and I had an experience recently of getting another tattoo, and I had no idea what it was going to look like until it was done. Now, for some people, that may be a risk that they're not willing to accept. So I just wanted to share with you why I would accept that as a risk and possibly getting something permanently on my body that I didn't like. The artist that I got the tattoo from, when I went to meet with him, he is from Chile. He doesn't speak a word of English, and we communicate through his Swedish wife, who, while she has perfect command of the English language, still it's not her first language. And so I went to meet with him, and he looked at me for about a minute. I told him where I'd wanted it. He looked at me, nodded his head, and said, he's got it. And that was the amount of input that I actually had into the whole design of this tattoo. Now, again, would you accept that? Would you accept that level of risk if you were going to get something permanently etched onto your body? So I just wanted to share with you why it is an acceptable level of risk to me. This guy is very well known in these parts of the world, and he's got a very distinctive style, and the whole experience of getting the tattoo done is quite unique. And you go into the studio and he gets into almost like a trance sort of state, and his wife plays all these instruments around us, and he basically channels this whole design, and it's like he tells me afterwards, it's like the gun speaks through him. So you still may be asking, how is this an acceptable level of risk to me that I'd be willing to get something permanently inked onto my body that I've got very little input into the design of? Well, primarily I trust him and I trust his work, and a number of my friends have had work done by him and they all look amazing. None of them have had an experience where it wasn't what they wanted, and so I trust him and I trust his process, and primarily that's how it becomes an acceptable level of risk to me. The fact that it's not impacting anyone else, probably apart from my mother, who May not be thrilled at it, but it's not on her skin. But it's not impacting anyone else other than myself. So again, like I mentioned earlier, when it comes to me personally, I have a higher acceptance of risk than if it was impacting anyone else. And lastly, how it's an acceptable level of risk is that technology is such that we can remove tattoos much better these days. So if it really was something that I did not like, then we do have the ability to remove or repair the tattoo. So all that being said, I just spent the last 3 days under the gun, and I am absolutely thrilled with the outcome. So my question to you is, what's your acceptable level of risk? Is that the same as the people you work with? Is that the same as the people in your life? Are you more risk averse, more risk tolerant? And for those situations where there's a high level of risk, how can you either reduce that? How can you either eliminate that risk or reduce it? And what sort of mitigations can you put in place that may reduce the consequence of that risk? Some good questions to ask, and hope you've enjoyed this walk and talk. And check us out at improvewithfit.com for more of these insights.